now is the time where you would be learning about the Blackmagic Cam. It is an absolutely new app. At the time of filming this course, it has been just 2 days since it's released. So yeah, consider yourself lucky because it has all the features that any paid app would have in the market. So let's click on the Blackmagic Cam. This is how the app looks. So I would just tilt it this way, and that's me here. So this is an overview of the app. So the first thing we're gonna start is from the left hand side top. So here it says the lens, which is 26 mm. So mm is millimeters. So the less the millimeter is, the wider the lens is, the more the millimeter is, the more zoomed in the lens is. For example, if you come here on the right hand side, here it says 26 millimeter. If I go to the 13 millimeter, which means that my wide lens is activated, the ultra wide lens is activated. If I go to the 3x, the telephoto lens, the zoom lens, which is 74 millimeters. So that's what it says in the corner here. And then FPS, what we discussed before, frame rates per second. So everything what we have learned in the past is gonna come super handy. So if something is confusing, you can always go back to the basic video settings section, and yeah, then you would know everything. And here is the frame rates per second. You can choose to 25, 30, and 24. You cannot choose to 60 frames per second because there's a reason, and I'm gonna talk to you about that in the upcoming minutes. And shutter speed 1/33 here. Remember the rule of thumb in videography, so every time the shutter speed should be double of the frame rate. So here what we're gonna do, as we are filming in 24 frames per second, we would bump up the shutter speed to 1/48 or 1/50. Let's leave on to 1/48. And then next to, oh, it came back to that. Yeah, let's leave on to here, and then I can also just lock it with this lock icon here. And now after shutter speed, we would be going to iris. I don't know why it says iris, but it's usually the number which is the aperture. So the aperture was, the higher the aperture is, the less light comes in the camera, remember? And the lower the aperture number is, the more the lens opens, and then the more light comes in the camera. But in iPhones, you cannot change the aperture number. And because we are filming at 77 mm, the aperture is 2.8. If I switch back to the 26 mm, then the aperture is 1.5. So that's for iPhone 13 Pro Max. If you're using iPhone 14, if you're using iPhone 15, all these aperture numbers would be different. But just to let you know, and we discussed before as well that because of these aperture numbers, which lens is suitable for which environment. Because lower the aperture number, the better it is in filming in low light. The higher the aperture number, the not so good it is in filming in low light. And next to the aperture is this timer, which is gonna, if I press record here, that's just gonna show us how many seconds or minutes it's recording. And it's really handy because there has been previous apps where even if I'm not recording, I'm just pointing the camera and I almost forget to record. And now I can see this red, text. So I know exactly that, oh, I'm recording actually. And I can just press the record here. And next to the timer, we have the ISO. We discussed before as well. So the more we increase the ISO, the brighter the image gets, you see. But the more we reduce the ISO, the less bright the image gets. And the higher the ISO is, there's more chances of having grains in the image. And next to ISO, so you see whatever is pressed here, whatever is selected here, there's this blue background on that thing. And if I unpress that, then the ISO meter also goes from the side. So if I press ISO again, you see this meter comes on the side. So you can just get rid of it just like that. And next to ISO is white balance. So white balance we discussed before as well. I also gave you a few examples, but don't worry, we're gonna be, whatever I'm teaching you now, we're gonna be going outside and filming some videos from this. So you would know exactly what all settings I have put to film certain videos. But yeah, let's come back to white balance. So obviously you can change the white balance by just scrolling this wheel, or if you cannot be bothered about changing white balance, just switch to auto. And whatever the scenario is, the iPhone would be changing the white balance by itself. Now the ideal white balance should be 3140, but if I go show you the outside, it's too bright, but the white balance now is 4660. The white balance would keep changing, so now it's making the white walls look white, and the white balance has changed to 4350. But this is not the most professional way to change white balance. So what I do is I wouldn't lock it. I go to these different scenarios and I choose a white balance which is suitable for this environment. And I think 4500 is pretty good. But sometimes you really have to tweak it manually with the scale. But that's white balance. And tint is also the color temperature. So the higher you go, the more pinkish the image looks. The lower you go, the more greenish the image looks. Sometimes your scenario can look super green or super pink. So then you can change the scale to complement the colors. So that's gone. Next with tint, here it says 4K, which means we are filming in 4K. And here it also says 52%, which is the battery of the camera. And let's go to the bracket here next to the battery percentage. That's the bracket. So now it can get a little bit complicated, but just bear with me. And it's so crazy that this app has all these features for free. So let's click on the first option, which is this circle with some lines. And what this is doing is this is giving me this zebra lines in this image. And what this zebra lines is that if, say for example, if I put it to 95%, which means is that if something in the image is of 95% brightness, then you would see the zebra lines. So you know that that part of the image is overexposed and you need to tweak the video settings to make it come down. So you see, I can just reduce the ISO now to get rid of the zebras. Those are called zebras, the line what you saw. So now I'm sure is that nothing is overexposed in this image. So let's go back to the zebra. So that's why if you're filming a professional video, I think it's important to turn on the zebra lines. And the main reason behind is that sometimes in the screen of the phone, you cannot tell if something is bright or something is not so bright. So that's why you would, with the help of zebra lines, you would exactly know which part of the image is super bright. So yeah, and if I reduce down the zebra lines, then it would show is that whatever part of the image which is brighter than 80% of the image, then the zebra lines would show. But usually I put the limit to 95% in just an ideal world. So I put the limit to 95%. So if something is really bright, then it's gonna show me that, oh, that is really bright, you have to do something about it. So that was the first option, zebra line. I'll just turn it off for the sake of this tutorial. Then we go to this where there's a human and there's a focus option. So here what it is showing is that this is called focus peaking lines. So it's red now, which means it is showing is that what part of the image is focused. So if I bring it here, you see this part of the image is focused. But if I press here, now it's gonna show me that this part of the image is focused. So this is also really handy when you are actually filming in manual video settings. So then you exactly know what part of the image is in focus, because obviously the screen of the phone is too small. It's hard to tell sometimes which part is in focus, which part is not. So that's when this focus peaking lines, they help you to tell you which part is in focus. And this is just the intensity of the color. So you know, if I go really low, then the things are still in focus, but the intensity of the redness in the focus area is less. And if you go super high, then it's gonna show you exactly what place is in focus with full-on intensity. So that's focus peaking. And then if we go below that, now it's gonna show me grid lines. So these are grid lines. You can also change the color of these lines, and you can also Just select all of this if you want or not. It's totally up to you. But later on, when I would be filming outside and I will be showing you different compositions, then these grid lines would come in handy. But for now, I'll just turn it off because now it looks like too much chaos. And after the grid lines, there is something called the crop mode. So you see, sometimes people want to put these black bars on the videos. So obviously you would be putting them in the edit. So this function is showing you that this is how your image would look if you are putting black bars. And you can change the ratio of the composition. So you see, whatever movie you see on Netflix or wherever you see it, they all have these black bars on the top. And if you're filming like a square video, this is how it's gonna look. If you're filming a 9:16 video, this is how it's gonna look. But if you have to film a vertical video, I would recommend you to just film like this. But yeah, let's get rid of it. So this is literally just giving you the cropped version of how the image would look. And after that, now we have another bracket. So if you want to keep something in the frame at just that particular position, this is a little guide to tell you that this is how the frame would look, and if you want to put something in there, you can put it, giving you all the information about this image. And this is, and the LUTs, if you have installed any LUTs, you can put it, but I don't think we would be using this because we are not really filming in raw format. So let's get rid of it. I would also get rid of all these bars. So yeah, that's what these settings are on the side. And next to the settings, there's this option which also has an A saying next to it. So that is the autofocus and manual focus. So you see, now my focus is sort of changing. You see, now the minimum focus distance is 18. If I go up here, the minimum focus distance changes to 66. And if you want to do manual focus, you can just go like this. And if I just press here, so I would change the minimum focus distance. So you see how my focus is shifting? So this is when the focus peaking comes in handy. So I can just increase that and then I can change the focus of the subject. So it's really handy because sometimes when you're outside, it's too bright, you cannot really tell what part of the image is in focus. The manual focus would come in handy. And most of the time, any cameras, they tend to focus on things which is brighter in the image. But sometimes you don't want the things which is the brightest in the image to be in focus. You want the subject to be in focus. So that's when the manual video settings comes in handy. But with the focus, if I press here, you see the bracket AF, if I just keep clicking, then it locks the autofocus and auto exposure. That's exactly how the inbuilt iPhone camera app also does. So if I just lock it again, then the focus changes. But if I keep pressing it, you see it locks again. So yeah, I would just keep the focus to auto at the moment, and I would go to here. So now this is showing me exposure. So if I want my exposure to be higher, you see, if I increase the exposure, the ISO number increases as well. So this is just an exposure meter, which in my opinion, it's not really useful. You can just change the ISO directly. So I would just get rid of it. And of course, this is the record button, which is also really important. And here is the important stuff. So this is the stabilization under the record. So if I press it off, you see my image becomes a little bit wider. If I do standard, the image crops in. And that is because if you want the stabilization in the image, the iPhone would crop the image a little bit to let the software do its job to make the image look stable. And there's different levels of stabilization. The more extreme you go, the more taxing it's going to be on your phone. So if you have iPhone 13, 14, 15, that shouldn't be a problem. But if you have iPhones lower than that, then the image feedback would lag. So if I switch the image like this, the feedback would come in half a second. But for this case, I just keep it to extreme because it's working. So why not just have a nice and stable footage? And after stabilization, this is the inbuilt zoom feature of this app. So now the app is not mechanically switching between the lenses. it is digitally zooming the image. So that's what the app is. And this is just to, if you are making a movie, then you can change the scenes and name the scenes, but that's not really important for now. So that was the settings on the right hand side. And if you go to the extreme right hand side, then you will see the camera here where we are now. If you see the media, so media is all the things what I have filmed in this app. You see, I've not filmed much because it was just released yesterday. And now if you go on the extreme right hand side, we go to the settings. Or before going to the settings, I'm just gonna give you a bit more tour of this place. So here you see the audio meter. It is showing that the iPhone microphone is on. If I attach any other microphone, it's gonna tell me the other microphone is on. And this part tells me how many minutes I have yet to record. So now I have 1 hour and 31 minutes, which I can record, and I have 96 gigabytes available. So my iPhone is 512 gigabytes, and that is 20% of the entire memory. And this is a histogram. So a histogram tells you what part of the image is bright, what part of the image is dark. So if I go more towards the dark side, you see the shadows part increases. If I go towards this light, you see just the highlights, just the brightest part is peaking. But if I show the app the normal image, it's gonna show that there is enough bright parts, there is enough dark parts in this image. So histogram is also important, but if you're a beginner, don't worry too much about it. Don't make your life too complicated. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna go to the most important camera settings, which is here in the right hand corner, says settings. So let's go here. First thing is, it is showing me the record section. And after the record, we go to the codec on the right hand side. So codec is really important. So let's go in there. And here you have all different video filming options. So the best option, in my opinion, is Apple ProRes 422 Proxy and HEVC H.265. There is a really simple reason behind it. Apple ProRes 422 Proxy is a format which is filming in really high quality, and it is filming in 422 color bit, which is a 10-bit color bit. And I'm not going to explain you exactly how it works, but this is an image format which is closer to raw video format. So if you filmed something in this image format, then you can put heavy color grading on your iPhone footage without the footage falling apart. But if you have filmed in just a normal video format, then you cannot do super heavy color grading because then your image wouldn't look that good. So yeah, and also the thing with 422 10-bit color format is that if you film something underexposed, then in editing, you can tweak the image to look normal. If you film something overexposed, you can reduce the brightness without the image falling apart. But if you have just filmed in a normal video format, then you cannot retain the exposure. You cannot bring back the exposure. So that's why the 422 10-bit format gives more video information to the software as compared to the other formats. That's why the size is bigger. Just for example, if I go to Apple ProRes 444, which is the highest quality in which you can film, and then I go to camera, then if you see here in the middle in this little box, it shows that you can only film for 12 minutes. And if I go back to settings, I go to Apple ProRes 422 Proxy. Here it shows you can film for an hour and a half. That's really cool. And if I go to settings and if I go to H.265, go back to camera, now you can film for 5 hours and 26 minutes. And also the good part is that in iPhone 13, you can film at 60 frames per second when you are in 4K. Not 4K ProRes, just in 4K. But if you switch to 4K ProRes, Apple ProRes, then I go to camera, then the frame rate is maximum is 30. So let's go back to 24. And that's why H.265 is handy as well. And the best video settings for you, I would recommend, is to start filming with H.265. It's not going to take enough space. You can still film in 4K and you can do somewhat basic color grading and still make the image look really pretty. And speaking of color grading, we're gonna be talking about color grading in the phone. We're gonna be talking about color grading in the computer, so don't worry about that. But yeah, in short, Apple ProRes 4 to do proxy if you want a heavy color grading, but if you're a complete beginner, start with H.265. So after the video codec, we would be keeping the resolution to 4K. And after that, we're gonna move on to color space. So in the color space, this is really important. You should keep your color space to Rec 709 because you might have observed by now that if you import your video clips, which was shot in iPhone's camera app, they look a little bit desaturated in any video editing app. That's why from this app, you should record the video in Rec 709 because your iPhone's app is recording this video in Rec 2020. And that's why I recommend people to use an external app because that can help you to record in Rec 709. And Rec 709 is the same color format which we usually use in any professional cameras. So once we go back, timecode display, record run, because I want to see when my video is being recorded. So the whole thing turns red. And time-lapse recording, you can turn it on if you have to record time-lapse. If not, keep it off. Because if you turn it on, and if you're filming something, everything would be recorded as a time lapse. So yeah, I would just turn it on to off, and now I would move to the camera section. I would just keep these settings the same. And also one thing, when you have just, I should have told this earlier, but when you have just installed this app, it's gonna ask you to allow the microphone, allow the camera, and allow the gallery, and allow the photo gallery, say yes to everything. Let's go to audio. I haven't changed anything and I'm still getting really good audio. Focus assist was what I showed you before, the peaking lines. So I go to colored lines, that's what it shows. And the focus assist color, the colors we chose as red, you can choose as black, green, blue, but I choose red because red you can see in all different types of environment. And guides capacity was the grid lines, the rule of third lines. You can choose the opacity. I think I would do 50. And let's go back to HDMI clean. I don't do anything. I don't do any changes here. Display histogram. You can turn off the histogram. So the histogram, what you saw on the side, that's gonna go out. But I just keep it because I wanna see if something is crazy overexposed. I keep all the other settings the same. Then I go to media. From this app, you can also upload on the cloud, the DaVinci Resolve cloud, but I don't do that. And if you want to upload it, you can choose either you want to upload the proxies or the originals. And here, this is really important, save clips to in-app and photo library. So you can also choose in-app only, so you can just access the photos from the app. LUTs I'm not gonna discuss now because we are not really filming in a RAW format, and I'm not really putting any LUTs here. So yeah, because the whatever LUTs we're gonna be editing in DaVinci Resolve and in the phone with my LUTs, which is absolutely free with the class. So yeah, don't worry about that. Blackmagic Cloud, that's my email. I'm not gonna reset about this. Open Blackmagic cam settings. So if you go in the camera in the phone, then you can choose what all things you want it to be accessing. So that's that. I think I've covered everything from this app, and I think the LUTs is on. I'll turn it off. So yeah, it's a really interesting app and everything is free. It's beautiful. I still cannot believe it that this app is free. You can do everything from this app. And if you have any questions, just let me know. So that was the Blackmagic Cam app for you, where you can film everything in manual video settings for free. Now let's move on to the next section.